Billy Crystal's career was based on making fun of people and doing impressions. In 2012, he even used blackface music and got a lot of hate for it. But one famous person stayed completely out of the fray. People wanted to know why. Producers pushed him. Writers of music begged for content. Every time, Crystal said no. Then, during the Oscars in 1991, cameras caught something that no one was supposed to witness. A moment so real it made sense of everything in music. In a movie he made on this individual in 2021, Crystal finally spoke the truth. The sadness never went away. And now we know why he could never tell the joke. Billy Crystal was born into a world full of music. He was born on March 14, 1948, at Doctors Hospital in New York City. And the noise around him wasn't just random noise. It was jazz music. There were stories. People were making magic happen right then and there. Jack Crystal, his father, ran the Commodore Music Store, a well-known venue in New York City where jam sessions might start up like a rainstorm. Billie Holiday and Gene Krupa were two of the stars that would come. Billy was close enough to feel the air alter when a legend stepped in, even though other kids were still trying to figure out what the world was. He was meeting those famous jazz musicians by the time he was 5. The music didn't go away as he grew up in Long Beach, New York. It grew larger. His uncle Milt Gabler started Commodore Records, which is known as the first independent jazz label in the U.S. He then went on to work for Decca Records. Billy wasn't simply listening to music, he was watching it get made. He watched Gabler make songs like Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock when he was 7 years old. He also observed how heavy names like Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald were. Those times weren't just fun anecdotes to tell later. They were like a hidden door that led to the truth about how entertainment works. Billy started copying radio DJs at family gatherings merely to make people laugh. It was fun, but it was also practice. He was learning how to time things without knowing it. He was discovering how a voice can fill a room, and every time a relative laughed at a song, it was a small clue that he could do something with it. Then Broadway hit him hard and early. He was 7 years old in 1955 while his father was promoting Guys and Dolls. Billy went to the show with his family. He didn't just watch it and go on with his day. He took it home like a spark in his pocket. Later, at a family dinner, he made an unplanned stage imitation of composer Frank Loesser, which made his elder brothers Joel and Richard feel bad. But it also showed something significant. He wasn't frightened to perform even if the people in the room might judge him. The production was a big hit, with over 200 performances and several Tony Awards. But what mattered more to Billy was easier. It made him feel like he was alive. It gave him a high. You start to chase it as soon as you feel it, even if you don't know what to call it yet. But being good at something doesn't mean life will always be easy. Music. In 1963, sorrow struck the family when his 32-year-old cousin Joel died of cystic fibrosis. Billy was still a kid, and loss can make things hard to understand. So he did what he was already good at. He made the anguish into something he could control. He didn't want to be famous when he started putting on local talent showcases, music concerts. He just needed a way to breathe again. He needed a technique to make a room that suddenly felt weighty feel lighter. Later, he would declare that music became his shield. And those shows taught him that laughing may help. Not flawlessly, not forever, but enough to get you through the night. He graduated from Nassau Community College with an associate's degree in theater in 1968. And he kept acting whenever he could. He used temple events as his training ground. One of his routines, an impression of Sammy Davis Jr., stood out. It won him a $25 prize and drew a lot of attention for how exact it was. At the same time, it caused a lot of debate since some people thought it went too far. He remembered that moment. He looked back and said that it taught him how to be more sensitive and respectful. That $25 was still important since it showed that the craft could pay, even if it was only a little. And then he took the bigger risk. At the bitter end in Greenwich Village in 1968, when he was 20, he took the stage. It was a famous place that had been open since 1961 and was recognized for hosting Bob Dylan and Joan Rivers. Billy came in and played a short 10-minute set of songs about his Jewish family. He didn't back down when the room pushed back. He was very funny when he snapped at hecklers. It was real, even though it was rough. He was also forging his life with Janie Squire, who would become his wife, during those years. While they were in college at Hofstra University, they made up improvised duets for open mic evenings. Their act about dating a silly girl from Philly quickly spread among the students. That momentum led to an audition for a pilot of The Tonight Show in Music, 1970. He reached a turning point in 1970, after getting a theater degree from New York University. There was a secure employment as a teacher. The road that was safer was open, but he picked humor. He picked not knowing. He even played music for tips outside of Carnegie Hall. It sounds crazy, yet it works for him. That thirst continued sharpening him because he was always seeking to get the next level with his own voice. He joined an improv group called THRE's Company on Long Island in 1972. Some parts didn't work at first. His lisping impersonation of Liza Minnelli made everyone quiet and confused. That kind of quiet might hurt more than alcohol. He kept going, though, and constructed the act until it became a full 15-minute show. After that, he received his first paying job in music, which paid $50 each event. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was a big deal. The troupe lasted for 4 years, which provided him time to try things out in coffee shops and college venues, where he learned how to read a room that didn't always want to be read. Then, in 1973, something happened that would become a part of his legacy. An inebriated person in the audience at a Catskills resort show started to heckle. Billy started to improvise and delivered a roast that made fun of Muhammad Ali's speech problem. It almost became a fight. It also made him known as someone who wasn't afraid of anything and could turn any situation into comedy, even if it was dangerous. That same edge in music followed him to TV, where the stakes were even higher. In 1977, he played Jody Dallas on Soap, making him one of the first gay characters to appear regularly on primetime TV at a period when there weren't many gay characters on TV. "Danny, this isn't a joke. I'm gay. You never stop, do you?" It was new and exciting, but also risky in a way that is hard to understand now. An episode broadcast in 1978 in which Jod thought about transitioning, and the reaction came quickly. Death threats and a lot of hate mail. ABC made his appearances safer and even called off planned advertising activities because they were worried about safety. Think about bringing your script to work knowing that someone wants you to leave. He didn't give up, though. He leaned forward. He later added that the threats made him play Jod like a real person. He made up about 40% of Jod's lines, and that helped keep the character from becoming a cartoon. Then, in 1979, controversy, music, flared up again when Jody married a lady in drag. Network censors said that 12 minutes needed to be trimmed from the episode. All around the country, conservative groups held protests. Some radio stations wouldn't play it. Advertisers were threatened with boycotts. There was a lot of noise. It was a mess. And it was real. And even with all that fire, the bad press helped ratings and showed that people could handle risky stories, even if some portions of the country were upset about it. The pressure didn't stay on the screen either. Off-screen, things got tense with co-star Katherine Helmont. He said he would quit during a table read in 1978 if the script changes made Jod feel less real. It is said that the fight lasted more than an hour, with both sides refusing to back down. But somehow that same level of energy showed up on television as Emmy-nominated chemistry. And in the weeks after that fight, ratings were up by 20%. Producers changed important moments so that both actors might be happy with them. This made the season more complex. He was learning a terrible lesson right then and there. If you fight for the reality of a character, it could damage you in the room, but it can also transform what the audience sees. Even after that, he still felt the usual pain of rejection. He was on Saturday Night Live in 1980 after Soap finished, where he did an impression of Fernando Lamas. Lorne Michaels thought the sketch was too polished and cut it before it aired. Billy was heartbroken. He kept moving, working, and revising even when it felt like the floor had dropped out. Months later, a new version of the show aired, and the character of Fernando became one of the show's most popular recurrent impressions. That pattern continued happening in his life. He finds a window once the door closes, even if he has to, music, created himself. And while the world was reacting, his personal life was also going through a lot. His role in the soap opera generated problems with his Orthodox Jewish family. Some family members didn't come to Thanksgiving dinner in November 1978 because they thought he was advocating sin and embarrassing the family. That kind of rejection hurts a lot because it comes from individuals who are supposed to keep you safe. He took that grief and turned it into something useful. In his 1981 stand-up special, he joked about coming out as straight, and the laugh had a shadow in it because the joke was also a bruise. Billy Crystal came onto Saturday Night Live at a peculiar time. Eddie Murphy has just left. The show was unstable, and no one knew what would work. In March 1984, Crystal debuted a character named Fernando on Weekend Update. At first, the music felt modest and even casual, but then he leaned forward, looked right at the camera, and remarked, "You look marvelous." Something clicked. The phrase quickly became popular. Fernando quickly had his own skit, Fernando's Music Hideout, where Crystal pretended to interview famous people like Hulk Hogan and, music, Howard Cosell. There were no cue cards or safety net. Crystal had to think on his feet in front of up to 15 million people. Every time I saw them, I felt like they were menacing and alive. Fernando quietly helped keep SNL steady at a tough time for the show. By the middle of the 1980s, that one word had become a cultural echo that could be heard in everything from late-night jokes to song parodies. But Crystal's time on SNL almost ended before it had started. His first taped skit was Morty the Mime, a weird and ambitious play set in the African jungle that mixed old Hollywood drama with silent comedy. It lasted too long, 6.5 minutes. The sketch included live sound effects, including Don Partardo chewing potato chips to seem like footsteps. When the pilot came on, Morty was gone, cut off altogether. Music, Crystal was broken. He subsequently recalled that night was one of the worst of his early career, and he almost quit the show right then and there. But that disappointment made the producers want to keep him, which led to a full-season deal and the breakout performance that followed. Crystal was more than just a performer by 1986. He was setting the mood for the show. In same year, he co-wrote the Rich Little Show parody and played a number of characters, including Ronald Reagan in drag. The music throughout the sketch was crisp and adventurous. People who watched complained. There were a lot of complaints to the FCC. But the comedy still worked. Crystal earned his first Emmy for writing music. It was a silent reinforcement that his gut feelings were true, even if they made people uncomfortable. At the same time, things got tense backstage. Crystal and Dana Carvey fought over impressions that were too similar, especially one of Sammy Davis Jr. Crystal didn't want to share it. He wanted to be in charge of everything. The fight became a famous story among cast members, a reminder that SNL was not just about making people laugh, but also about territory. It seemed like a relief when he did his last SNL routine in 1985. Robin Williams, who was a guest presenter, joined him for a long roast, and the excitement was through the roof. Williams blasted off impromptu lines at breakneck speed. Crystal matched him step for step. It didn't feel like a goodbye at that time. It felt like the beginning of something new. A friendship that would last for years and change both of their lives. Crystal's career changed quickly after SNL. In 1978, he made his first movie, Rabbit Test, which was strange since he played a man who gets pregnant when a research experiment goes wrong. People were horrified by the movie, and music critics didn't like it. It still made $4.7 million, nevertheless, on a budget of $1.5 million. It was weird, dirty, and hard to forget. It was also the only time Joan Rivers directed a movie that was shot in just 21 days. Crystal wasn't afraid to throw himself into the character, even during the iconic birth scene with the vacuum cleaner. Music, the movie became a cult classic years later. There was also Michael Keaton's first movie role, which was concealed in there and waiting to be found. In 1984, Crystal played Morty the Mime again, but this time in the movie this is Spinal Tap. He didn't get credit, didn't speak, and got a $500 bonus. But his over-the-top gestures and silent mocking of the band produced one of the most memorable music moments in the movie. He stole the show without saying a word. It showed that he didn't need discussion to get the time right. Running Scared came out in 1986. Crystal played a stressed-out Chicago cop who starts using cocaine. People were stunned. He conducted his own stunts during a pursuit sequence, and the music broke his ankle. The production stopped. He got better soon and returned back to finish the movie, which made more than $38 million. The anguish persisted on the screen. It made the performance feel real. It demonstrated that he was willing to get injured for the job. Throw Mama from the Train gave him even more freedom a year later. Crystal came up with more than 20 different ways to kill Larry Donner. One had a chainsaw, which was too violent, so it cut, and the others stayed. Danny DeVito, the director, let him do whatever he wanted, and that freedom created the core of the movie. The comedy seemed real because it was. That year, The Princess Bride almost lost him. The Miracle Max prosthetic made him quite sick and made his face bloat up so much that the producers thought about replacing him with Robin Williams. Crystal kept going. He had lied about practically everything. The actors laughed so hard that they almost stopped filming. Mandy Patinkin hurt her rib trying not to laugh. Hours of more footage built up. What was left became some of the most famous lines in the movie. Then there was the time Harry met Sally. Rob Reiner thought about Tom Hanks when he was casting in 1988. But Crystal came to the table crimson and sounded just like Reiner. Just got divorced, anxious, and honest. The link was immediate. Crystal even helped write the script behind the scenes by adding uncredited material and pushing the limits during rehearsals. It took 65 tries to get the deli scene right. I went all in with Ryan. There was a lot of tension in the room. Crystal thought the scene needed one last push. He came up with the statement, "I'll have what she's having." It wasn't planned. It made everything different. The movie made $92 million and was nominated for 3 Oscars. Crystal said no to a sequel in 1990 because she thought it would destroy the finale. Billy Crystal has always trusted times when things seem real, even when no one arranges them. That's why one of the most renowned music sequences of his career was never written down. The quiet speech about finding your one thing in City Slickers in 1991 wasn't in the screenplay. It came from living. Crystal had previously talked to Jack Palance about becoming older and feeling disoriented late at night. Palance brought that weight with him to the stage. He looked at Crystal and said it out loud when the camera started rolling. "Just one thing, okay? Stay with that, and the rest doesn't matter." The crew stopped moving. You could feel it hit the floor. Later, Crystal said that the moment's strength came from Palance himself, from his personal difficulties and wounds. The movie cost $17 million to make and made more than $130 million around the world. Palance got the Oscar. But even after all these years, people still talk about that scene because it feels like someone is telling you the truth when you least expect it. That thirst for the truth stayed with Crystal in whatever he did after that. He elected to play Buddy Young Jr. from age 30 to 80 in Mr. Saturday Night, his first movie as a filmmaker, which came out in 1992. He wouldn't take the easy way out. Every day entailed putting on layers of prosthetics. It could take up to 12 hours to get him ready at times. His skin got bad. Then came infections. He joked that his head, music, was so heavy that it weighed 9 pounds. The team saw him pull himself through sequences tired and in pain, yet he never gave up. The makeup team went further with effects than most movies did at the time. People respected the movie because his change felt so real. It also revealed how far Crystal will go to make a character seem real. Forget Paris in 1995 was also guided by that same instinct. He got the idea for the narrative from his own honeymoon errors, such forgetting his wallet in 1970. He continued changing scenes to make them more like actual life. He urged for more shooting. The studio had to pay an extra $3 million for those decisions, which brought the budget to $30 million. Crystal didn't care. He wanted Paris to feel like a real place. He wanted marriage to be messy, not miraculous. He even brought in real NBA legends like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and David Robinson to help him with his job as a basketball referee. The movie was different since it focused on what happens after the romance is over. It took chances that made it feel real. Crystal was still looking for something deeper than laughs when Analyze This came out in 1999. He and Robert De Niro went to Genuine Treatment together to develop the unusual bond between a crime boss and a therapist. These were not practice runs. They were talks. De Niro talked on fears he didn't often disclose. There was a 2-week break in filming. Nobody said anything. What happened in those sessions was shown on TV. The movie generated more than $16 million around the world. It also showed that real feelings might make comedy last. Even cartoons made him go crazy. Crystal recorded the voice of Mike Wazowski for Monsters Incorporated in 2001 in about 300 sessions. He yelled. He made his voice louder. He went too far with the music. His vocal cords broke. A doctor told him to quit or he could hurt himself for good. Pixar had to fix bits of his performance digitally to keep it running smoothly. The movie made more than $562 million around the world. Mike is someone you will always remember. Not many people knew how much his body hurt for that voice. Another challenge was hosting the Oscars. In 1990, Crystal, who was only 41 at the time, climbed onto the stage without a safety net. He depended on his gut, his impressions, and his speed. His first speech had 15 impersonations in it. When he made fun of Tom Cruise from Top Gun, the crowd laughed for 8 minutes straight. Cruise sat there and went along with it. Everything changed that night. It started a streak that would see Crystal host the Oscars 9 times, more than virtually anybody else in the modern age. But those stages were also dangerous. In 2012, Music, Crystal did a Midnight in Paris sketch in which she wore blackface to make fun of Sammy Davis Jr. The outcry happened quickly. Within a few hours, more than 5,000 complaints flooded social media. Some people said it was a return to something that should have stayed hidden. Sammy Davis Jr.'s daughter backed Crystal, saying her father would have agreed. But the occasion was a turning point. The laws of comedy had shifted. Crystal could feel it. He went on The View in 2013 and said the bit was tone-deaf. He said that comedy had become a dangerous place. That honesty probably cost him the chance to host the Oscars again. People often forget how much Crystal cared about the people around him. When Robin Williams went off script at the 1991 Oscars in a raw, emotional moment, Crystal stepped in without forethought. He calmed the room down. He anchored his companion in music. Williams later said that experience saved, snorts, his sanity during a dark time when he was addicted. They were quite close. When Williams' Music died in 2014, it fractured Crystal in a way that was silent and never fully healed. There was always work to do. He voiced Calcifer in the English version of Howl's Moving Castle in 2004. At first, Studio Ghibli was hesitant about the style, but John Lasseter trusted in Crystal and let him record sequences in long, energetic takes. A year later, Crystal's longtime manager sued him for unpaid royalties. The claim put his money and reputation at risk. He agreed to pay almost $1 million to resolve the case. It was a reminder that even famous people need to pay attention to the details. In 2013, when Monsters University came out, Crystal struggled for Mike Wazowski's soul. Pixar had deleted a 3-minute music passage that showed Mike being sad and unsure of himself. Crystal pushed back. He said that supporters needed to see that side. After weeks of arguing, the scenes were put back in. Later, critics praised the choice. The character had weight because they were weak. Crystal went on stage alone on Broadway in 2014, with his life in his hands. 700 Sundays told his narrative through family photos and memories. Billy's father, Jack, who died abruptly in 1963 when Billy was only 15, was at the center of it all. The eulogy scenario made everyone cry and be quiet. The show got a Tony. It made about $15 million and sold out. It showed that Crystal was more than just a comic. He was a storyteller who knew how to bring up old scars and let people look within. That sadness came with him here today, in 2021. He played a widowed writer who had been hurt by loss. The movie was like how he felt about Robin Williams' death. In one instance, people wrote letters that they will never send. Those statements hit too near to home on stage. Tiffany Haddish sobbed as they were filming. Crystal dedicated the movie to Williams and said that he kept his last voicemail for years. Family always stayed close to each other. He asked Janice Goldfinger to marry him in a drive-in in 1967, and they got married on June 4, 1970. The marriage was almost over by 1973. Touring and being apart almost did them in. Instead, they got married again in Las Vegas in 1975, with an Elvis lookalike as the officiant. That weird night of music saved them. They were still together more than 54 years later. His girls also had an impact on him. Jennifer directed a 2003 documentary that, music, revealed sad family history related to the Holocaust. Crystal had to face stories he had been avoiding for decades when he watched it. In 2010, Lindsay performed an intervention for Crystal's family when she was burning herself out. He was afraid he would die early like his dad. He transformed because of therapy. He took his time. Crystal said that hosting the Oscars has made him 10 years older by December 2024. He said no to the 2025 ceremony because of health issues. He was valued about $60 million. But money never defined the legacy. What is left is something more tranquil. A man who believed in real moments, who sought the truth even when it hurt, and who realized over and over that the most important thing is what stays with you when the spotlight goes off.